Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. A federal court blocks President Donald Trump's tariffs, ruling he overstepped his authority. The White House says it will appeal as businesses and trade partners are thrown into uncertainty. According to Israeli media, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he's accepted a new ceasefire plan proposed by US envoy Steve Witkoff. Meanwhile, Hamas says it's studying it. The European Union has officially lifted the majority of its economic sanctions on Syria. Now to our top story, and a US federal court has blocked President Trump's global tariffs, undermining the administration's economic policies. A panel of 3 judges have ruled the tariffs as unlawful, adding the US president overstepped his authority on the 2nd of April, his so-called Liberation Day. This decision will inevitably create a further divide between the Trump administration and the judiciary. I'm now joined by Angie Wong, Miami GOP Committeewoman, who's in Washington. Angie, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. So we've had some breaking news in the last hour, and I just wanted to talk to you about this. Netanyahu says Israel has accepted Witkoff's new Gaza Truce proposal. Is this a step closer to a ceasefire?
Yes, Witkoff has been working feverishly to get President Trump a win on this matter, and he's been going back and forth with both leaders in Hamas and also in Israel to make it happen. Is this a breakthrough moment, or is this more back and forth? Experts I've been speaking to just in the last few minutes, they all expect this just to be another act in a long, long play, and they expect that Hamas may be looking to reject this latest proposal. And Israel knows this. They want to get back into war and to doing everything they have to do to Gaza, which was their original mission. So I think right now, Witkoff is trying to give Trump a desperate win, at least a desperate headline, to show that he's winning in the region. Whether or not Hamas will come to the table on this, that is a big, big question mark. Now, if they do, I think a lot of people will be surprised.
So, Angie, do you think, and from what you're hearing from the conversations you're having, this is something Hamas isn't going to accept, and we're going to see the ongoing fighting between Israel and Hamas carry on? And really, what will this mean for the Trump administration? As you say, Witkoff has been working so hard on this.
Yes, I think Hamas wants to see a complete withdrawal from the region by Israel. Right now, this particular proposal is only talking about the northern withdrawal in Gaza, and also just a return of a few prisoners and a few hostages. So at this time, it may or may not work. I think maybe this might be a very good, step 1, even though we're probably at step 12 or 13 by now on the negotiation. But at least they're talking, and at least Witkoff has gotten both sides to the table to at least have those discussions. So we do see this as a positive movement. But Witkoff, this is his number 1 agenda every day when he wakes up, is to get Trump to be the ultimate deal maker here. And if he could pull that off, this would be quite the feat, because this war has been going on for multiple years now.
Angie, thank you so much for commenting on that. But let's just get back to the tariff situation that's unfolding over in the US. And I wanted to know what happens now that Trump's key economic policy has been undermined. Surely the president must just be seething with this.
Yes, and we're seeing early headlines coming out saying that this is just a hiccup, that they're going to get back on track. They're calling these judges that are blocking the tariffs to go through activist judges. That's a term we've been hearing a lot here in the United States, that a lot of these judges were appointed by Obama and other Democratic presidents. Ultimately, they're going to have to work this through the courts. Now, whether or not Trump will be able to do that in a timely manner, I don't know. I mean, these are are all just case management issues. This could take 1, possibly even 2 years to resolve in the courts. And I think that's what Democrats want. But meanwhile, the markets have responded very, very favorably around the world to this court blocking Trump's tariffs. And I think President Trump's team must be looking at this. If the markets are reacting this favorably, Trump should probably rethink how he's going to go about doing this, because, there's been a lot of business owners, and from big to small, that have been waiting for this day for the courts to block these tariffs that would have really increased their margins and maybe even put a lot of businesses out of business.
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing Wall Street, as you said, reacting really positively to this. And surely, as you mentioned there, I wonder if we could just go through that point again. This must be a sign from investors that tariffs are not positive for trade and also globalization. Do you think Donald Trump will take that into consideration?
He has to. I mean, he is a businessman, and he is also reacting to the market. And those are better polls than any pollster can do, any political posters can do, right? And these are the world markets reacting. They're very, very happy that they get to go back to where they were prior to Trump. But again, Trump's not going to let up. He desperately wants to be a leader in this, and he wants this as a win, because it's creating leverage around the world to have to work with the United States and to have better trade, not just free trade. We want fair trade. So I think his team's going to have to readjust the messaging here. It is curious, though, that after the UK and this temporary Chinese U.S. tariff deal, no one else has jumped on board. I think a lot of the other world leaders knew that this was coming down the pipeline. They were all waiting to see what the court said before they engaged in talks with the White House again. So this, of course, changes everything today. I expect President Trump to come out with a statement very soon.
And Angie, tariffs aren't the only thing Trump is going to be fighting in the courts. A US judge says she plans to block the administration from revoking Harvard's ability to enroll foreign students. Is this another blow for Donald Trump in the US right now? He's going to be, as you said, it might take him years to get his policies through.
And that's right. And he doesn't have years, right? He has the midterm elections coming up right after the summer. That's when the midterm elections really kick off. And that's going to determine the size and shape of the House of Congress and the Senate. And he needs both houses on the Republican win for him to pass through the Trump agenda going forward, for him to have a full 4-year presidency. So these things are all coming around. The courts are there to stall. And the lawyers and the plaintiffs who are filing these suits, they know it. This is political theater. Now, with Harvard, there are other ways of stopping foreign students from entering the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had also put a pause on all foreign students receiving visas until they're properly vetted. I am in full support of this. I think all foreigners coming into the United States should be vetted and are vetted. Asylum seekers are vetted. Potential employees are vetted. And so are tourists. So why wouldn't foreign students also be vetted?
And Angie, I respect and understand your point of view, but isn't this another blow for the US economy? If we think about foreign students, they bring in a lot of money, especially when it comes to Harvard and how global standing this university is. Doesn't this just undermine the whole point of the universities and freedom of speech and freedom to come to America and study?
Yes, I'm sure a lot of foreign students are looking at other countries like the UK or Australia and other countries that are more welcoming, that will roll out the welcoming mat for them to come and study there and pour their money into. This is not just a message for Harvard University, but all American universities. Harvard has a $53 billion endowment. They're not worried if they had to survive the Trump administration for 4+ years. They have the money to do so. Other universities that rely rely on foreign students, they don't have the luxury. So we expect those other non-Harvard University presidents to be putting a lot of pressure right now on Harvard because this affects everyone. And I think that's the leverage that the Trump administration is trying to create, is to pressure Harvard, other Ivy League schools to rooting out the problems. And the problems in our universities right now really is the anti-Semitism, as well as a lot of these protests that are breaking out that are borderline hate crimes, not so much free speech that we have here in the US, but hate crimes and committing all sorts of property damage.
And Angie, I just wanted to ask you a question about Elon Musk. He's officially stepped down from his role as head of Doge. What are your thoughts on his departure? And what impact do you believe he had on the administration's agenda? Was it positive?
I think Elon Musk did a great job in the 130 days that he was allowed to do his job as a special federal employee, and that is the cap off 130 days. Look, you need the hatchet man to come in, and Trump is that guy as well. So along with Elon Musk, who had not only the skills to do the audits and do the digging, he also had the largest digital microphone today with X. So he was able to showcase all the fraud, waste, and abuse that was happening in our U.S. government to save American taxpayers. And that's so we're very thankful for his service. The next step of his legacy will really be left to Congress, where now Congress takes these findings and creates bills based on his findings. And hopefully President Trump signs them into law so that this type of waste and fraud never happens again. And now we have to turn bills into laws. So, he's passed the baton over to Marjorie Taylor Greene over in the Congress, and hopefully she will be seeing bills very soon. I think we're seeing the very first bill today on the floor, if time allots, for some of the communication fraud that we had, well, rather that Elon Musk and his team has found.
Angie Wong, it's always fascinating to have you on the show. I always appreciate your insights and thoughts. Angie Wong there, Miami GOP Committeewoman. Once again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
According to Israeli media, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he's accepted a new ceasefire plan proposed by US envoy Steve Witkoff. Meanwhile, Hamas says it's currently studying that plan. It comes as Israel announced plans to establish 22 new settlements in the occupied West Bank, marking the largest expansion in decades. For more on this, I'm joined by Fredman, former Ministry of Strategic Affairs official and the director of the Misgav Institute for National Security. Absolute pleasure to have you on, Asher. Thanks so much for joining us. Can we start with...
Thank you.
Good evening. Can we start with the news we're hearing of Netanyahu saying Israel accepts a US Gaza ceasefire proposal? Hamas says it's currently studying it. What steps will Israel take next?
Israel has, from the outset, set a key goal of bringing home as many of our hostages as possible. But at the same time, we can't allow Hamas to survive as the dominant power de facto in Gaza and rebuild its terror capabilities for carrying out the next October 7th attack. According to the latest proposal, there will be a temporary ceasefire. A number of the hostages will come out. There will be discussions about what the day after might look like. I believe that if Hamas is truly willing to relinquish power, we might see a lasting and permanent ceasefire. If Hamas wants to remain either officially or de facto the dominant power on the ground, we will likely see the resumption of the current war.
And my guest that I was speaking to before you, Angie Wong, she says that she's speaking to sources and it doesn't look like Hamas is actually going to accept this plan. What will the consequences of this be?
Hamas's primary goal from the outset has been to survive. If it survives, if Israel retreats and it holds a big rallies in Gaza City, it will be seen as the victor. The and therefore it's unlikely that Hamas will accept any deal that doesn't have a permanent end to the war that leaves it in power. Israel has launched the Gideon's Chariots operation in Gaza. It's really the first operation that we've seen that's truly designed, truly calibrated to achieve this goal of dismantling Hamas as the dominant military and governing power. For just one example, the plan is that Israel will hold on to territory long enough to find all of the tunnels and the weapon storehouses that are hidden underground. In the past, Israel went in, captured an area, and then left. The idea now is that Israel will stay, find all the terrorist infrastructure, and only then leave. This has, of course, made Hamas very nervous, which is creating some willingness for a hostage deal, but it remains to be seen whether, in fact, the hostage deal indeed happens.
And thank you so much for your insights into that deal that we're hearing at the moment that Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel has accepted. But on to another story. The UK government has condemned the decision by the Israeli government to approve the 22 new settlements in the occupied West Bank. Will this have any impact on the Israeli government's decision?
I don't believe it will. After Hamas's October 7th terror attack and Hamas's growing popularity in the West Bank, it is by far the most popular political party in the Palestinian Authority today. It's clear to Israel that there are strategic areas that it must remain in control of under any foreseeable arrangement in the future. Just as one example, we know that Iran and Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, are looking to attack Israel from Jordan to attack Israel's eastern border. So increasing Israel's presence in the Jordan Valley along its eastern border is a key strategic security need for Israel's future security and safety. So I think that I'm not surprised that the UK government has condemned the move, but I think there's a broad consensus in Israel that these are areas that Israel will need to remain in control of in any future arrangement, whatever that might look like.
Is Israel still working towards a two-state solution in light of these new settlements, or is it looking more like a one-state solution is something that the government is working towards after what I've just heard from you there?
Let's look objectively. The Oslo paradigm, which has been dominant for the last 30 years, has not brought peace or prosperity or stability, neither to the Palestinians nor to the Israelis. And each side will blame the other, and it's very obviously a very complicated and complex issue. But the bottom line is, for 30 years, we've been trying the same thing. It hasn't worked. And it might be time to consider new paradigms, more out-of-the-box solutions, which will be good for the Palestinians and good for the Israelis. I don't think we have to say, well, this is what was decided 30 years ago, and we can't think of any other potential solution, especially given the fact that the Palestinian Authority is already losing control of parts of its own territory. It's losing control to militias in the northern West Bank, to terrorist groups. We might have to have a rethink about what the future looks like for Palestinians and for Israelis, so we can both enjoy stability and security and even prosperity in the region.
And how do you anticipate this decision will affect Israel's relationship with its Arab neighbours, particularly those involved in the accords that were signed, the Abraham Accords?
Israel very deeply values these relationships, and we've seen them continue on the diplomatic level, the strategic level. We've even seen trade continue to rise in between Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, also between Egypt and Jordan. Trade rose, for example, in 2024 after the war, as opposed to 2023 before the war. These countries have leveraged the trust that they've developed with Israel, for example, to play a leading role in bringing humanitarian aid into Gaza, because there's this trust, this rapport built between the sides that was able to happen. We've seen, for example, the UAE called in the Israeli ambassador to condemn Israel's March on Jerusalem Day. So there are tensions, and both sides know how to openly discuss the issues that bother them. I think that Israel's Abraham Accords ties will continue. I think hopefully if we get to a day after Hamas, a day where Hamas really is no longer present, no longer dominant on the ground in Gaza, these countries may play a key role in creating a better future for Gaza. And it's even conceivable that in a future where the PA is willing to, for example, end its terror incitement, end its terror payments, and undergo real reforms and incitement, create a culture of peace, these countries like the UAE, even like Saudi Arabia, might have a role in building a better future for the Palestinians as well.
And you speak to me there about, eradicating Hamas when they don't have so much power anymore within Gaza. But the humanitarian situation in Gaza has been described as dire, with significant civilian casualties and infrastructure damage beyond belief. The scenes are chaotic. How does the Israeli government balance its security concerns with the need to minimize humanitarian suffering?
There's no doubt that there's been terrible suffering on both sides, and nobody in Israel wants to see innocent civilians hurt. The challenge has been that Hamas, as we know, has built its terror bases in hospitals, in schools. Friends of mine who've served in Gaza tell me that in nearly every house they find a terror tunnel or a weapon or explosives. So it's been a real challenge. But we have to remember, if Israel doesn't eliminate Hamas as the dominant power, then we're looking at another devastating war a year from now, 2 years from now, just like we had numerous wars over the last 15, 20 years. The only way we're going to get to a stable and viable and peaceful future for the people of Gaza and for the people of Israel is by eliminating Hamas.
Thank you so much for your thoughts there. It was absolutely great to speak to you. I hope we have you back on the show. That was Fredman. Once again, a pleasure to speak to you. To talk more about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, I'm joined by humanitarian expert and former spokesperson for the Office of the United Nations, Mohammad Haouri. Thank you so much for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And I just wanted to say, what do you make of the reports we're hearing about Israel accepting a US proposal for a Gaza ceasefire? Is this positive news?
Actually, it's not positive news from that we still have several days that we're hearing Hamas accept, then Israel refuse, then Israel accept, then Hamas refuse. Between these days and every day and every minute, there is people dying in Gaza and still no solution for this war. And actually, we hope there is a real act on that, not just we're hearing news. Maybe, as what your guest just says, somehow it's still gray in the way. We don't have an accurate position, not for Israel, not for Hamas, and not for the international system and community, that there is a real step acting forward that to stop the war forever, not just for a small window, not just for 108 truck to be entered, 50% of them is damaged. This is actually an issue.
No, absolutely. And just to pick up on the aid there, Gaza, we have seen such chaotic scenes, haven't we? And it's been extremely sad as the new US-backed group, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, starts operations within Gaza. What factors have contributed to these incidents that we've seen? We've seen deadly incidents as people try to get aid. We've also seen looting, storming of aid trucks. What's going so wrong?
That's when you give the non-professional people, other people, professions. When you take the responsibility, what should UNRWA, WFP, WHO, OCHA, UNICEF, to deliver the aid, what they are doing since 77 years, and they know where is the location, and they send the aid to the people. What this organization did, they just opened 3 centers of the aid in the center of Gaza, and the people have to travel to them, and the people already suffering. As you know, this truck enter Gaza after 11 days of none trucks enter, 0 food. And actually it's so shame when you saw some news, people stealing the aid. They're not stealing the aid, they need to live. And you put it in very far location. Actually by the Israeli military, they report the road is not safe to these locations. How you can travel for hours in this summer with non-safe road just to reach a small bag of bread.
So you're saying there, the 11-week blockade, people are absolutely desperate. But I just want you to explain the situation. I know that you've got workers on the ground right now. People are desperate for aid. Most of the aid is coming into southern Gaza, if I'm correct. So how are your workers managing the situation? And is it really dangerous for people to be coming from the north of Gaza to these aid centers?
Actually, it's dangerous to move from each location to other location. From the north to the south, it's a dream to move, as what we saw in the news. And the situation It's became horrible to the level that we heard the statement released a couple of days ago that there is a 13 child who are going to be died in next 48 hours if no aid enter Gaza. And this is true. Actually, this is a new millennium. And we find people dying from hunger that we can avoid the reason of their death. There is the real issues of the complication of the situation. You want to enter just 100 a truck in 3 days, and the people need the daily over 600 a truck. You are talking about 2.2 million, and they are getting an exile inside exile and a camp inside a camp, and the movement is to keep going, and the people isolated in different location and no communication ways to people to approach each other, and no aid center is functioning. This is very important. The hospitals, schools, safe areas, safe haven, 90% something around that is damaged. We're talking about a small percentage is semi-function about the hospitals. That's a small image.
But Israel's argument is that they have to bomb the hospitals, and that's what they've been doing because they Hamas control centers. And this is exactly what we're hearing from Israel time and time again. Do you think this is an accurate portrayal of what the situation actually is and who's in those hospitals within Israel, within Gaza?
I think the globe agree in one convention in Geneva related to the war. And in that convention says, if you counting terrorists in hospital, you don't bomb the hospital. If you found them inside school, you don't attach the school. We are seeing today in this news that they are targeting civilian directly. Aid truck, what's related to Hamas? Everything what they are attacking today is really related to Hamas. They are civilian, come on. Okay, and now we're talking about who caused whom, why this is happening. This is another argument away from the humanitarian situation today. Why we keep seeing children died without stopping this.
And do you think that the international community right now, the wider international world, is too focused on short-term relief rather than long-term solutions for the people of Gaza?
What we are seeing today in Gaza actually is not just a crisis. It's just a moral collapse for the international system. Why? Because looking for the short term of relief, this is one of the many other examples. They are not looking really for a solution. We need for a long-term relief that will keep these people alive. If we are working on the short-term relief, what that will have impact? That we will have a damage in the people health forever, especially the people under 18 years age. And that's continue with the supplement and the food and everything is in a zero, not short actually. It's short, it's zero in some locations. And that's what will be caused in the future. People get extra angry, people lose their life, their resource of the life is zero, and the short-time relief, it can be helped? No. It can be fixed the situation? No. We need a safe corridors. We need a commitment. We need a protection. This is the three major elements should be the international community to be supported. Today is zero respect for the law. We see the people is advocated for several times, for several statements we see from all the United Nations, and it became not just a statement, it be converted to be a witnessing what's happening there. But who can act? There is a people still have hope. There is someone will care and act, but actually today this hope need help.
Thank you so much for joining us and for bringing us your insights on the humanitarian situation on the ground in Gaza. It was a pleasure to have you on. Mohammad Haouri there. Once again, thank you very much. The US economy shrunk 0.2% in the first quarter on weaker consumer spending and an even bigger impact from trade than was expected. This data comes as a ruling by a federal court that has blocked most of President Trump's tariffs is also impacting financial markets. For more on the economic outlook and market reaction, here's Al Arabiya senior correspondent Karina Kamel.
It's a busy day for global markets with a number of factors impacting investor sentiment. We've been following U.S. GDP figures out today. That's the reading of economic activity in the first quarter of this year. And today, the second reading or revision was announced, data confirming that the economy contracted by 0.2%, a bit better than was expected previously, but that's still the first contraction since the beginning of 2002. And it's also worth mentioning that this data covers the first 3 months of the year, which means it doesn't include the full force of President Donald Trump's tariffs. And speaking of tariffs, we've had big news out of New York today with a court ruling that some of the president's tariffs were in fact unconstitutional. The Federal Court of International Trade, which is based in New York, ruled that the U.S. Constitution grants Congress the exclusive authority to regulate trade with other countries, and that Congress's power in that area supersedes the president's emergency powers to protect the economy. And here it's worth clarifying that when President Donald Trump imposed a range of tariffs, be it targeting specific countries, specific sectors, and those across the board reciprocal tariffs he announced on Liberation Day on the 2nd of April, he used a variety of emergency laws that he argued gave him, the president, the executive branch of government, the authority to do so without needing to go to Congress and to get their approval, essentially to put it to a vote to Congress. Now, this particular court is saying that was an overreach. The court is saying that he exceeded the limits of his executive power, and therefore those tariffs are unconstitutional. Now, it's also important to note that this ruling does not apply to all tariffs. It strikes down the tariffs Trump imposed under what is known as the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, a law dating back to the late 1970s. And practically here, we are talking about those 10% reciprocal tariffs on all nations, some of the tariffs imposed on Canada, Mexico, and China. But we're not talking about the sectoral tariffs targeting specific sectors such as auto, steel, or aluminum. Those tariffs remain in place. And just to give some added background here, the reason there was a court ruling on this issue in the first place is because about a dozen U.S. states, led by the Attorney General of the state of Oregon, along with a number of businesses, brought a legal challenge against the Trump administration, saying that these tariffs were damaging the state economies. Now, for its part, the White House has rejected the court's authority, saying it's not up to unelected judges to decide how to address what the president considers a national economic emergency. Now, the court's decision can be appealed at the federal level, and the White House has indicated it will appeal. It could even potentially reach the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, as far as markets are concerned, this news has brought some short-term relief, but it does carry longer-term uncertainty. Will we now see a protracted legal battle over trade policy? How does that impact trade negotiations underway with the EU and also Japan? How will those countries respond? Will they plow ahead and continue talks, or want to wait and see? What about the deal already agreed with the United Kingdom? There is no doubt that this legal roadblock was welcomed by investors to a certain extent. But extended policy and legal uncertainty will inevitably impact investor sentiment going forward. And it could also lead to companies delaying decisions about hiring more employees in the United States and increasing their investments in the US. And at the end of the day, that is bad for the US economy.
Now, the European Union has officially lifted the majority of its economic sanctions on Syria. It has removed restrictions on key sectors, including banking, energy and telecommunications, and unfreezes assets of 24 entities, notably the Central Bank of Syria. The move comes in response to the recent political changes in Damascus and aims to support Syria's post-conflict recovery. For more on this, I'm joined by Navvar Shaban, researcher at Harmoon Center. Absolute pleasure to have you on, Navvar. So I just wanted to say the EU has lifted a wide range of sanctions imposed on Syria, including on its financial system. What does this mean for Syria as the country looks to rebuild itself?
First of all, let me say thank you for having me. What we're witnessing is a significant policy change from the European side toward the new situation in Syria. But before even that, there was there was several indications, several positive vibes, if we want to compare it with the American approach. Basically, the country, after this 14 years of struggle and a very damaged infrastructure, a very poor community, it does require the lift of sanction for at least to give them a chance to build a better future. The suspension of sanction for several months won't be enough even. First of all, there was talk about suspension of the sanction for like several months. These sectors are totally damaged. They need more than several months at least to be active once again. So yes, the remove of sanction is something is very important. It can be considered. It is actually considered very significant at this time. But also there is several indication that it might be reversible. There is some minor obstacle that the Syrian government need to give insurance in different kind of like human rights and these kind of other sectors. There is some kind of violation. So in conclusion, when it comes to these sanction removal in different sectors such as banking, oil, gas, investment, it is the essential needs right now for Syria to rebuild. And not removing them is basically keeping Syria in the limbo. Not even in the on heaven, or neither in heaven, nor hell. It's basically in limbo. So basically, here it came the need of removing these sanctions just to give them a chance. This chance comes with obstacles. This chance comes with challenges on the new government in Syria in different sectors, just to make sure that things goes this time in the right way.
So Syria's Minister of Economy has told Al Arabiya News the country needs at least $1 trillion to rebuild its economy. He also warned the World Bank's estimate of $400 billion is insufficient. You spoke to me about lifting the sanctions. This will have some impact, but not an immediate effect. How is Syria going to reach this $1 trillion, and how is it going to begin to rebuild?
So basically now it's obvious that the new situation in Syria, there is new allies in Syria, for the Syrian government and for the Syrian people. We're talking about a community who struggled for 14 years. Not only the people who lived in Northwest, all of Syria. The sanction was, basically the sanction is the legacy of a fallen regime. Surprisingly, there was no actual impact on the regime. There was actual impact on the infrastructure of Syria, the power of this country. So basically, yes, there is a lot of shortage. There is a lot of works need to be done. What might make it, or what the positive vibes here, it comes that there is a lot of allies. There is a lot of contracts are being signed right now in oil and gas, electricity, investment. All the Syrian minister from Nidal, from Hind Qabawat, from Haikal, all of these new Syrian ministers are trying their best just to ensure that the channels for investment, channels to help to be part of rebuilding Syria is open. This is what actually Syria needs right now. And on the other half, the Syrian government are trying also their best to ensure that both the EU, the American, to ease their worries when it comes to the current government background and how Syria is now once and for all, just like before the 50 years ago, it's all for all Syrian, and it's one community. So there is a joint effort happening right now. There is the ministry trying their best to ensure that the environment is suitable right now for investment in Syria, because these huge amount of investment is a necessity right now. There is a huge shortage. Without these investment, just by lifting the sanction, it's not magic. This is what all the officials are trying to explain. Us as a researcher, it's not about like today we lift the sanction, tomorrow everything will be okay. We're talking about a legacy of a damaged infrastructure, damaged community, a lot of obstacles. But at least right now we have the right environment to make things to the better, to make things at least toward a better future.
Navvar, Shaban, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you on the show. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And now some breaking news. UK police have charged a 53-year-old man with 7 offences for allegedly ramming a car into crowds celebrating Liverpool's Premier League title earlier this week. The counts against Paul Doyle include dangerous driving and causing grievous bodily harm with intent. So some breaking news there on the Liverpool FC parade car ramming. And a reminder of our top stories. A federal court blocks President Donald Trump's tariffs, ruling he overstepped his authority. The White House says it will appeal as businesses and trade partners are thrown into uncertainty. According to Israeli media, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he's accepted a new ceasefire plan proposed by US envoy Steve Witkoff. Meanwhile, Hamas says it's studying it. The European Union has officially lifted the majority of economic sanctions on Syria. And that's all from us on W News. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on X. We'll be back in a couple of hours with W News Extra. Goodbye.